Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you're listening to The Scoop on OwlScoop.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, Season 4, Episode 41. I'm John DiCarlo, joined by Kyle Gauss, Graham Foley, and our special guest this week, Ari Rosenfeld from Delaware Valley Hoops Report. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Thanks for making the trip to North Philadelphia.
Absolutely, how you doing? JDC. Always a pleasure.
And he's here for Kyle's birthday. It's a late birthday celebration. Kyle turned 30 over the weekend.
No.
Any this is 30 thoughts from you?
Yeah, it's me, Paul Rudd. I'm married to the director's wife. For This is 40. No, I mean, it's fine. It's black and white. You wake up on the 30th and your world is pain. Joints hurt.
You're 12 years younger.
Hangovers don't go away.
You're 12 years younger than me, and you're making it sound like your life is over.
Hangovers do not go away that quickly in your 30s. I can tell you that much.
How much more did you drink after I left?
I got home like 1 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when did you leave? You didn't make it to Adobe with us, did you?
8-ish. Adobe in South. Oh, yeah, I guess.
No, yeah, we were at Adobe for like 5 more hours after that.
Did you do karaoke?
No, I did not. Thank God. I expected to see Jeff McDevitt there, just doing karaoke, but no.
Should we talk quickly? Everybody knows Jeff McDevitt here. Should we talk quickly about the fact about the guy in the Bo Jackson, the powder blue Bo Jackson?
Oh my
Bills
God, I
jersey,
forgot about that guy.
Who emerged from the tall grass and tried to get back into.
There's like
Xfinity
a
Live.
field of reeds in between the parking lot and Xfinity Live. The guy must have got kicked out. He jumped the fence and tried to come back in from the reeds, and he's like not. And like he's already like the second he gets in, he's already like lost balance. He's like falling for it as he does
Yes.
it. Second he gets up, a security guard just brings him over, and then we're like, oh, he's getting kicked out. Next thing you know, he swung at a security guard. He just gets like
Yeah.
drilled.
I mean, literally arrived.
Yeah, it's like 3:30, 4 p.m. 4:30.
Arrived right at our table. All of a sudden, you hear like this rustling. I'm like, "What is going on? Are we gonna be attacked by like a giant like fox or something?" And this guy just comes out and like then tries to get
nice
back
jersey.
in.
Bo Jackson jersey?
Yeah,
you
beautiful.
got to respect that.
Beautifully pressed Bo Jackson jersey.
And they swung at somebody.
And then I think we had a brief conversation about who the better two-sport athlete was, him or Dion.
It's Dion.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, Bo
Just because
Bo
what
was
Dion
injured,
did
and Bo didn't have a long career in the NFL because of injuries. It's Dion. Dion was a better two-sport athlete. Dion played in the World Series.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Me and Graham just
Not
be sitting here. Did
Did you know Deion Sanders played in the division?
Of course.
There's a whole documentary
Of
about it. I watched it.
What's it called?
I don't know the name of it, but I watched it.
Deion Sanders hit 304 one season.
Yeah.
He was a 300 hitter in Major Leagues. Deion Sanders.
It was a big drama though.
Then he came back in what? He came back in NFL like 2004. Like just decided like I'm back.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12-year career in the Major Leagues.
And Bo did not. Bo.
I do got to shout out Charlie Ward though, as a basketball
Ward.
guy, longtime NBA veteran and a Heisman Trophy winner. I feel like I
Yes.
slept on in
Yeah.
this
That's
conversation.
Yeah.
Charlie Ward would play in today's NFL. That
Yeah,
NFL he
probably.
couldn't have.
Yeah.
This NFL he would be Kyler Murray.
Also celebrating, Ari is now a Newhouse School graduate. Just graduated from Syracuse. Congratulations.
Thank you, John. You know,
So
it's been
let's,
a long time in the making.
A long time in making. So let's get into this and talk some life, some hoops with you. Just tell us, this is your second time on our podcast. For people listening to this maybe for the first time who don't know you, you have about more than 70 D1 programs, right? Around that number that are like subscribing.
No, about probably about 70 that I work with, about 40 to 45 that are subscribing to my service.
Okay.
I did a count the other day, probably 120, 130, just coach numbers in my phone. So yeah. I mean the schools I'm working with and the schools that are buying my service is a little bit different, but.
How'd you get into this? Because it's cool that again you just finished college at Syracuse. Now you're going to be getting into this business more. But I mean, guys on Temple staff, guys on staffs around the country. Just tell people at home who are listening, how you get into this and just how you get into analyzing players in the game and just build up that credibility.
Honestly, I would say the biggest thing that I did, and the biggest thing I think anybody can do coming up is just being around. Initially, people might look at, who's that guy? But if you're in, especially covering one area like I do in the Philly area, you show up enough times, you're in the gym enough times, people are gonna, at least start realizing that you're there and wondering who it is, what you're doing. And as long as you're a genuine guy, they're probably gonna welcome you. As long as you're a genuine guy and you're trying to help kids, not and not exploit anybody in the process, people are gonna welcome you if they see you around and see you put in the work. And that's basically what I started doing while I was still in high school. Was always just kind of a basketball junkie. Always knew like whatever I do, I want to do something basketball related. And the most accessible high level basketball, growing up in Cherry Hill at least, was coming across the bridge and going to high school games in Philly. And seeing, I was always on the, even go back to when I was in middle school, going on a B-ball spotlight, which is a big time elementary and middle school AAU website. When I was in middle school, I was looking up all the top kids in my class and like reading, about all the B-ball spotlight tournaments. And then as I got older, I got my license. Just started. I can just show up. And these are awesome games. These are awesome high level basketball.
You get your license. Some kids are like sneaking away to the mall. And you're like running off to AAU tournaments.
Exactly. About like the big Catholic League games that have at Philly U. I'd always try to get to. District 12 championship games at St. Josie used to have like these great double headers, and now they have them spread out a little bit. So yeah, we basically just start showing up. Eventually, that turned into a spot writing for City Basketball Love, RIP. So writing
Which
for
Graham also worked for.
An esteemed alumni. Started writing for CBL, gave me actually more of an actual like purpose of showing up all the time, and just as I did that, it sort of shifted more from journalism was always kind of a means to an end for me to just be around basketball, and I realized there was this even closer connection I could have to the actual game being on. I didn't know scouting services were a thing when I first started doing that. So after a few years, I realized like this is really what I want to be doing. I have these relationships. There's no reason I can't start this, now on my own. But yeah, I would say that the ability to do that came from the years before that of just kind of just showing up and being a basketball guy and letting that shine through over anything.
Is it just a matter of, again, like you hear coaches and players, everyone in the business talk about like, hey, if I can get a piece of information from somebody and I can trust them, I'm going to go to them. And is it just a matter of that, like you give somebody a good piece of information, like, hey, thanks, man, and then before you know it, this coach is talking to you, that coach is talking to you, and it doesn't matter how young or old you are. And it kind of just goes from there.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, like this is a big time self-preservation industry, I like to say, and that across the board, and that for a coach means if they have somebody that has good information, whether they're a 5'6" Jewish kid from Cherry Hill, or Aaron McKee, the former NBA player. Like if they can trust the information and it's going to help them do their job better. This industry is way too cutthroat to not take advantage of that and use those resources when you have them.
Was it intimidating at all, kind of just starting something from scratch and not knowing how you kind of work on your own, or did you have a good idea that this could work?
By the time I started the scouting service, part of the beauty I started it with at the time Josh Verlin was running City Basketball Love, there was a time actually where it was like, this can't be this easy because there's no there's not much overhead on it. There's not we were profitable right away, and then what I realized at least was the overhead is the 3-4 years of work I've been putting in before that, of getting to know people, getting my reputation out there, not necessarily really making any money. That in its own way, that's all kind of the overhead of it. So by the time I started it, I felt good that I had those relationships and I'd be able to, at least have something up and running. And frankly, like year one was even above my expectations, and it's continued to kind of grow quicker than I thought it was, grow quicker than I thought it would. Being honest, just knowing the work that I put in and the relationships I had, it wasn't too intimidating. It was just kind of like putting it all together of, this is something I can do. There's no, this makes sense. Let's do it.
Well, you've known some of the guys on this Temple staff now. You've been around the area for a long time. Just your general thoughts on what you've seen so far from the Aaron McKee era. Obviously, hasn't coached a game yet, but at the press conference, it looks like he's upgraded the talent on the roster already with a few key pieces. Absolutely. What are your just general thoughts on what's going on so far?
Yeah, I could just say, having lived in the area for a long time, it does feel like there's some excitement about Temple basketball. For the first time in in probably at least a few years. Since I guess what was the last tournament around 3-4 years ago now?
They lost to Iowa.
Yeah.
A push off.
At least just even amongst like Philly basketball people, like there's all these Facebook groups. I know John, you'll sometimes indulge a little bit. I do more than I like, more than I necessarily care to admit.
Yeah.
At least monitor the news feeds.
Makes sense for him to do it. It makes no sense for him to do it.
I've had these conversations with John of like
post content there.
And I've had these conversations with John of like, I hate this stuff, but I at least if I learned one thing, if one out of these 100 posts are relevant to me, then yeah, it's probably something I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
you get riled up 1 out of every 10 posts.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe they said this, and you let that like directly impact you.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like there's a buzz. I mean, people I think want to see Aaron succeed, at least certainly in the area. Aaron's been just a success story of Philadelphia basketball in so many ways. For years now. So I think people definitely want to see him be successful, and you can't beat around the bush. They've gotten some high level talent in the door that they haven't necessarily been able to get in the last few years.
What about his staff again? People started speculating about it right away. As soon as he had the coach in waiting set up, and now we know that it's Monty Ross as his associate head coach. Chris remained on, which made sense. And then he hired Jimmy Fennerty as his third assistant. And just going right down the line on these guys. Again, you know all these guys. What do you think about the makeup of the staff and how it all came together?
I'll say off the bat, I don't have much of a relationship with Monty. We met a couple weeks ago. He was kind of, when I was kind of getting into things heavily, is when he was getting out at Delaware. But I mean, certainly a guy who's experienced. He's won games. He's respected in the city. I think similar to the way guys want to see Aaron succeed around here, they're going to want to see Monty succeed. Chris, you obviously know Chris very well. I'm sure a lot of the fans are familiar with Chris, just haven't been on the staff. But also, I could definitely speak to Jimmy's work from Lafayette. He's actually one of the first guys. When I was first starting covering games for COBL, my first Temple game I covered, Jimmy was still a GA here. Mm-hmm. We were introduced, shortly thereafter. He was on staff at Lafayette. So he and I have been working closely together for years, and you won't find many harder workers who also are like genuine people and always, even though they're working hard, find a time to make everybody feel important, feel valued the way Jimmy does. So I think I think some people maybe when he got hired may not have known him. Lafayette hasn't won a ton of games necessarily in the time that he was there. But I do think Jimmy's I can definitely speak to Jimmy that he's going to be a guy that I think the fans come to like, and you'll see his impact over the next couple of years.
With the new acquisition of talent for Temple, did you kind of see that coming with the hiring of Aaron? Like, have your thoughts changed at all about from the original hire to now seeing the results of it?
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, Aaron's another guy that I've gotten to know a lot more in the past year, kind of since he's gotten this head coach in waiting position. So just getting to talk basketball with him over that time, I definitely thought he was, he knows the game, and not that I ever necessarily doubted that, but just having the experience of talking, chopping it up with him, I could definitely speak to that. In fact, it doesn't shock me. I mean, you're seeing right now, kind of this push, even as of today with Juwan Howard getting hired at Michigan, this push towards, NBA guys, former NBA guys, whether they, former coaches or players, kind of coming in, and that's something that for kids is really attractive. Even the kid, Temple's not recruiting necessarily 5-star kids, but the kids at the back end of the top 150, the Josh Pierre-Louis of the world, all those kids have the NBA on their mind. And to be able to sell, that Aaron can get there, but also I think it's important too that Aaron didn't just, come out of the NBA and start all of a sudden think he could be, a relatively high-level college head coach. He's kind of paid his dues in the coaching realm too, and specifically in the college coaching realm. Kind of building up those relationships, being in gyms. So no, it doesn't shock me. I mean, obviously it's always like, it's all theoretical until it actually happens. So it's been good to see him actually prove it and get some guys signed and get some guys in the door that are probably cut above the talent level that they've been recruiting at the last couple years. That's definitely been good to see and a good sign probably for the Temple staff going forward.
This might be more of a recruiting question than a scouting question, but how much of that is based on momentum? I mean, Aaron gets announced. Well, he got announced a year ago. He gets introduced early April. They get Josh Pierre-Louis within a week, and then after that, you get Ty Strickland, you get Jake Forster. Just being around these kids, is that something that they notice that hey, Josh Pierre-Louis is going there, hey, Jake Forster's going there, and the ball kind of gets going?
I think somewhat like you could see, frankly, what Memphis is doing right now. I think that's a huge part of it. This specific Temple class, I'm not necessarily sure that I could attribute it to that, just because if you look at the guys they brought in, there's all kind of
connection.
There's a connection. So I think it was, kind of 3 independent recruitments in that case. But I definitely think now taking that guys see that of even if it's guys they don't necessarily know, if they don't know Ty Strickland, just you see the graphics of Temple signed a few guys now.
Is it as evident with anyone as it is with maybe a kid like Jake Forrester? He's, I guess you could call him a legacy kid in that Dwight played for Don Casey and John Chaney, didn't play a ton, but I mean, Temple just flat out was not a factor at all in his recruitment the first time around, right? I mean, I think they offered him, but they weren't there in the end. They weren't anywhere close. He goes to Indiana. and we've yet to speak with him actually, but it sounded from what I was told that his father was like, hey, I mean, again, if you want to get to the NBA, I like Aaron, I trust Aaron, and he ends up at Temple. Do you think that has a factor there?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially like, going back to, this trend of former pros, I think that's a great way for schools that aren't necessarily the traditional, like, blue bloods or high major, that are year in, year out pumping out pro level talents. I think you kind of have to have something specific you can sell to be able to get those kids in the door. Once you get them, then all you sell is, we just had XYZ, and now you can, come in and be the XYZ. But to kind of get that started, you need that selling point. And I think for Temple, they've been able to do a good job of really building the program around Aaron as the selling point. And I think it, specifically in today's day and age, it's something that really resonates with kids.
Tell us. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, with high schoolers, especially today, what do you think they really think of Aaron McKee? Because they didn't see him play. But
yeah, I mean,
I
mean, I'm sure. Yeah, like you said, they didn't see him play. I mean, Graham, I'm sure you.
So, Graham, did you see
him?
him?
No, I didn't.
I mean, I have vague memories of like him leading the league in 3-point percentage as a Sixer, and I'm I guess a couple years older than you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you Google, first off, like you Google the guy, you look him up on YouTube, like all of it's right there, and specifically, I think in Philly, Aaron McKee's name still rings out more than it would necessarily for another, the same caliber player in any other different city. Like, he's just such a Philly success story. With the fact that he's coaching here specifically, it all is kind of a perfect storm. And the people that do know Aaron McKee, a lot of them identify him with Temple already, and with Philadelphia already, and Philadelphia basketball.
And do you think that would help, Temple kind of get some of these, big kids in Philadelphia who are looking, elsewhere?
I think it will, or definitely, like I said, it's all about having that sales pitch and that, either, because for some kids staying home is a sales pitch, for some kids staying home is something you got to kind of, fight against, because not every kid wants to do that. But at least I think it's going to get them in the room and get them, certainly at least on a lot of like top 5 lists, top 3, if there's so many things that go into, whether or not you land a kid, but I think it's going to, it's going to give them that entree into these higher level kids just because of the track record of Aaron. And, now you're starting to see a little bit of a track record too of kids, specifically since they've been in the AAC, of kids being able to go on and have some pro success, or at least be in a position to earn that recognition. So I think those two together of, if you can really sell, like, you can come here and do the same exact thing you could go do at, Maryland or St. John, or wherever, who's recruited the area in recent years. It's just all about having kind of that one entree, and then it's just about, can you recruit the kid, can you build a relationship with the kid, and that's just so individual depending on who the kid is or who the family is, but it'll get them in the room, I think, for sure.
Tell us about Jake Forrester, again, for people who haven't seen him play. He was at West Town, played sparingly at Indiana. We'll see if he sits out the year or if they end up getting a waiver for him or something like that. But what did you see from when he was at high school, and what do you think he could be for the program?
I mean, I think, first off, like, I had Jake as a straight high major talent coming out of high school. Didn't necessarily see anything in Indiana one way or another to be able to say if that was a good eval or bad eval, but, a year ago, that was what I thought of him. And if Temple's able to consistently get those kids, they're going to be, in consistent NCAA tournaments. I mean, Jake is a super high energy kid when he's on the court. He's about 6. What do they list him at? 6'9"?
Yeah,
he's probably somewhere between 6'8" and 6'9". Real physical specimen. Totally cut up. He played. His biggest asset, especially at the high major level, was his energy and his rebounding. Specifically, he was probably one of the best rebounders, pound for pound, in his class across the country. What's also always intrigued me about Jake is he packages that with the fact that, like, if you leave him open from 3 and he catches it on a standstill, he can knock it down. And I always thought that even in high school that kind of got overlooked. Even if he's not going to be a high volume shooter, just the threat of having a guy out there that's going to do all those things that can also, you can put him in the corner and he's going to be a threat to knock down an open shot. I think is always, for me, that's what separated him of, like, some other guys who maybe with his skill set would be fringe high major guys. That was what kind of put me over the top of, like, yeah, he's definitely a high major kid somewhere. And then on defense, he can, theoretically, he can guard a lot of positions. He's a great athlete. Definitely, he's going to be a big time layup line kid for sure. He can just do some stuff that you don't expect from guys necessarily his size to be able to do, in the way that he can move, and the way he can get off the ground.
What about how much did you get to see Josh Pierre-Louis over the last couple of years, and if even just regardless of what you've seen from, what do you think his impact could be?
Yeah, I mean, so Josh, he's a kid he's seeing here and there since going into sophomore year. I was at Future All-American camp, the hoop group does every year. Was the first time I saw Josh, and he was really undersized then at that point. He was probably like 5'9", 5'10", but already pretty athletic, and you could kind of see the length. You obviously knew who Nate was. So there's some upside there, and he's just kind of been a kid. I've never he's not in my necessarily recruiting area for my scouting service, so I've never sat down and totally taken notes on his game the way I would kids from Philly. But obviously he's a freak athlete. I've always thought, obviously naturally watching him, you compare him to Nate in your head. More of a pure point guard than Nate is, but has that kind of same attacking downhill style, the same energy. And Nate's a solid athlete, but Josh is even next level compared to Nate as an athlete. And and obviously since then he's grown. He was 5'10", 5'11", and it looked like he was going to grow. There's a lot of kids that look like they're going to grow and never do. So he's probably you've probably seen him more recently than I have in person. Maybe probably between 6'2", 6'3" now.
He's listed probably at 6'1", between 6'1" and 6'3", somewhere.
Oh,
in
yeah,
that area.
yeah. And long, and he plays bigger than that just because of the athleticism. So he's a kid I could see coming in here and starting from day one. And when he committed to UNLV the first time around, he turned down a bunch of high major schools. Had a lot of those guys kind of coming, calling for him after he decommitted again. I mean, he's another one who's, I don't have a firm eval the way I did on Jake as a Westtown kid, but pretty much a no-brainer high major kid that's going to be coming to the AAC, so you would expect probably an instant impact.
How much, again, I know you didn't get to watch Temple on a night-in, night-out basis, but how much were they missing that type of player on the roster? Because, Shiz Alston goes on, has a really nice college career, might be a French pro, probably not going to, as much as I love Shiz, probably not going to get drafted. Maybe he makes it into somebody's camp. Maybe he has to knock around for a couple of years overseas, and maybe he can get in the league that way. But never had a true point or a true get to the rim guy playing next to him. How much were they missing that, and could Josh potentially be that guy?
Yeah, I think if not this year, I think down the line, Temple's definitely hoping he's going to be that guy and expecting him to be that guy. Specifically this past year with Shiz, I think having a guy like that would have really paid dividends, just because then you don't have that responsibility doesn't fall onto Shiz, right. And that's not necessarily he improved way more than I necessarily expected him to coming out of high school to be able to do that, at a decent level and be what ended up being the starting point guard for a solid AAC team. But that's not necessarily a style, right. And it's taking away some of what he does best, which is playing off the ball. I definitely think having that guy this year would have been huge, and definitely I know from dealing with Temple throughout the past, that they knew that, and they knew that was a priority for this class.
Yeah, so two names that kind of stuck out in the 2020 class that we keep hearing that Temple's involved with are a couple kids down the shore, Taj Thwait, Jaleel White. What have you kind of seen from them? What can you kind of describe to the Temple fans about them?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Taj and Jalil's. Was kind of banging that drum from before Temple offered him. Kind of trying to get him onto that radar. And both kids are definitely become priorities for this class. This 2020 class in the area is not been the most fun to cover. It's just not the most talented across the board. But I've always said that, especially this past year, once Jalil kind of really came into his own, that Wildwood Catholic was a place I could go to see a game and see two kids that I knew would be better than the last time I saw them before, and would play their absolute hardest while I was watching them. Of kids that were above a certain you could find a lot of D3 kids are just good high school players that are going to do that. But, as far as kids, who are legit mid to high major prospects, Wildwood Catholic kind of became my safe haven for that this year. Those two both have really just put in a lot of work. Taj, I'll start with Taj, just because he's kind of been on the radar a little bit longer. He kind of starting out was just a 6'6" energy guy. Now, a great athlete and had a great, college-ready body from the first time I saw him as a sophomore, but as a 6'6" energy guy, there's only so much you can go. He's grown a little bit. He's probably almost 6'7" now, but has just really worked hard to expand his skill game. He's never going to be a guy that's necessarily creating his own offense at this level, but I'm a big believer in Taj's jump shot. I think he's going to be a 38% three-point shooter in college, and just game planning wise, he's going to be a guy that teams have to close out on, and he's going to so just in that sense, he's going to help Temple spacing. And within the last year and a half, Taj he'd always play hard in spurts, and when he would play hard with his athleticism, you would really feel it. But if you're really watching, there were a lot, there were some plays where he maybe would take off, or you wouldn't see that energy. And within the last year, he's just totally turned that around. Where every play he's playing with just kind of like I'd say Todd plays with the violence about him, in a really in a really fun way. Like he's not just trying to beat you; he wants to make you like quit basketball after playing against him. So definitely a kid that I think would be a great get for Temple. It kind of fits what they want to do as far as building, getting these tough kids who want to be at Temple. And like I said too, I definitely think you get the added bonus similar to Jake Forrester that I think he's really going to be able to make shots around other guys. Then Jalil's been a little bit more of a late bloomer than Taj was. I first saw him play with Wildwood Catholic. He was still about 6'3", which at that time, he's a big guard. But was the most athletic, and at the time was just a total non-shooter. So you saw that the shades of what could be like a nice low-level D1 kid because of the size, and he knew how to play. But since then, he's now probably about somewhere between 6'6" and 6'7". And everybody likes to say this, but for Jalil, I totally believe it. Like they say, his growth plates are still open, so might even be a little bit taller than that by the time he gets to college. And still has all the same kind of point guard, jumbo guard skills that he had when he was 6'3". And with that, his athleticism is kind of unlocked a little bit. He's still not he's not flying around and dunking on dudes, but he can play above the rim. He can block some shots on the weak side. Like he's starting to make some athletic plays now. The jump shot is still not 100% there, but from where he was a year and a half ago as a complete non-shooter, like he's definitely made strides. He's making his free throws consistently. He's taking the threes that he's supposed to be taking, rather than dribbling out of them or passing up shots. So Jalil's a kid I know college coaches are just really excited about what he could be once they get him into their player development system. And if you're confident in that, and you're confident you think you can get the kid to be a really solid shooter, then there's a world where you have a 6'7" point guard who can shoot the ball. And those guys don't grow on trees, especially not in the American Athletic Conference.
So that actually leads me to a question. I think he's a good example. When you have a kid like him who's talented and he has that growth spurt and he makes the decision that, hey, I'm going to not really play on like the big shoe circuit. I'm going to stay in one of these areas. How much of your job is providing the scouting report of what he is now versus providing the scouting report of, hey, I think if he had a little more exposure and the right coaching and this, he could become this.
Yeah. Just what I do want to say, like playing on a non-shoe circuit and playing with the right coaching are not mutually exclusive.
Sure.
I definitely want to get that out there because it's certainly for some of the people who might be listening to this that I work with. But yeah, I think so. As far as analyzing what they are now versus what they're going to be, I do think that's kind of what separates. Necessarily like a journalist who can tell you what happened in the game,
right,
versus a scout who can tell you why it happened that way, or if this kid's not a great shooter, why isn't he a great shooter, and is it something that can be addressed, or is it something that they might never be able to do? Yes, it's important to strike that balance though too. You can't just be selling guys on kids who average 2 points a game, but right. Maybe down the line, in the industry, people are like, oh, that's the kid that gets you fired. So, and Jalil's actually a really interesting cross-section of that because at this point he does there's things that he's going to bring to a court right away that are just already there, with his size, the way he can handle the ball, the way he sees the floor, how hard he plays, you just know you're getting them. And then it's a matter of, really zeroing in on, do you think you could teach the kid to shoot at a high level? And I like to say that, if you're confident in your player development system, that's the kid that you 100% take. And I've had conversations with John of, that's why I thought Jalil actually just had knee surgery. He's probably going to be out for the summer, the rest of the AAU season, and this live high school period that's being introduced this year. I think he was definitely going to be a kid that ended up with some high, some high major, Big East, those level offers. And he might have still. I know he really likes Temple. He might have been a kid that had that and still decided to come here, but it obviously makes Temple's life a lot eeasier to not necessarily have to worry about that.
Right.
Now, Graham, we have a story probably come out in the next couple of days. Graham, I talked to Jalil, I talked to Dave DeWeese. Sounds fair to say that Temple might be in the lead for him right now? I know Todd personally. I know Todd better than I know Jalil. So this isn't, I don't want to put words in his mouth for sure. But certainly the buzz around everybody is he really likes Temple. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's now not going to be playing would lead me until the high school season would probably lead me more towards that you might see a commitment to Temple before the next time he gets on the court. Mm-hmm. Where the conversation I had with you, if he were to go out and play in this June high school period with Wildwood Catholic, running the point as
exactly,
opposed to,
exactly. You know, because for his AU team, he gets some looks on the ball. Like you can see some of the point guard stuff that he has, but he's playing just because of who he's playing next to. He's playing next to some other talented point guards in their own right, so they play him off the ball. For Wildwood Catholic, he was going to come out at this tournament at Philly U, which is being talked about as one of the premier high school events on the East Coast. So it was going to be all the high major coaches, certainly from who recruit anywhere near this area, are going to be there. He's going to come out and run the point at 6'6", 6'7", and that's what everyone's looking for these days. And if he may, I've seen him enough to know that maybe the jump shot's not all the way there yet. But if on that day it's 2-3 threes and the guy's never seen him play before, they're going to be sold pretty easily. So as far as Temple being the leader, like my guess would be that if he were forced to commit any time within the last year, he probably would have committed to Temple over anywhere else, and probably was, and you can't blame the kid at this point for just continuing to play things out and see where things shake out. But yeah, I mean, I would say now that he's not going to necessarily have those opportunities to just get out in front of guys. Obviously not that you're ever rooting on a kid to get injured, but from a Temple perspective, I think that's going to help make things easier on their end as far as really, kind of securing a commitment before the next time he gets out on the court.
And then I also get, again, probably within the next day or two, we'll have this after we have the podcast posted. We'll have Graham's story posted. You guys both seem to get the sense that with Taj, he'll probably draw it out a little bit longer, see what happens to him, see what happens in terms of more offers coming this way this summer.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. I mean, nothing Taj has ever said to me has indicated that he's in any type of rush to commit. Mm-hmm. He's gotten a few new offers since he started playing with Team Rio. Just the nature of going to play for Team Rio, guys don't go to play for them to necessarily play below the Power 5 level, or at least if they don't want to have those options at the very least. Mm-hmm. So I think by making that move, kind of gives a little window into where his head's at, and he's picked up some higher level offers with them, a lot of Big East schools. No one that Temple can necessarily needs to run away from, but some higher level stuff. I wouldn't necessarily expect him to play out through the spring, but I definitely think he's going to come out, play June, play July, and I'm actually interested. This is my first time thinking about it. I'm interested to see what Taj looks like for Wildwood Catholic in this June period without Jalil. Mm-hmm. I could see it kind of going either way. It's either he looks great and shows some more stuff on the ball, or he ends up trying to do a little bit too much, and maybe some of that falls off, and then the Temple commitment maybe isn't that isn't that far off at that point.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at some other names in the 2020 class. We'll go down the line here. Dominguez Stevens, kid from Woodrow Wilson High School down in D.C. He's ranked 78th nationally by Rivals in the 2020 class. A good shooter. I mean, it sounds like if they were to get Jaleel, they have as of now they have 3 scholarships to give to the 2020 class. So it sounds like maybe a bigger point like Jaleel, and then maybe a big, and then a guy that can just knock down shots.
Yeah.
Maybe a guy that's not necessarily in this area, but what are your thoughts on him? Again, he's got some high major offers. What could he be as in terms of a possibility as a guy who could?
Yeah. I mean, Dominguez is a kid I've seen. Similar to Josh, is kind of a kid I've seen. Every few months here and there, kind of since the freshman sophomore year range. And then Temple's really looking for a guy that makes shots right now, and that's Dominguez to a T. Mm-hmm. And that was always kind of my selling point for him when he was younger. I'm like, yeah, he's a surefire high major because he's already 6'5", 6'6", and he just makes shots at such a high clip. Mm-hmm. And those guys, they might end up going, to I don't want to get into the whole is Temple a high major conversation or not. So they might end up going to.
I had a half hour allocated.
So they might end up going to the AAC, but they're going to have the high major suitors for sure.
Right.
With those prerequisites off the bat. And he's just kind of been a kid that's continued to do that. I haven't seen him as much in the past years. I probably did when he was a little bit younger. So I can't totally speak to how the rest of his game's kind of developed and more the intricacies of it, like I can for some of these Philly kids. But 6'6" and makes shots, and is a solid athlete. You can't totally go wrong there. Certainly not at this level.
Mm-hmm. Going right down the line. Now, I got to bring up Lynn Greer's name because people ask about him all the time. He's Lynn's son. Zet Roman goes down, sticks his toe in the water, no kill, comes back. Now you're telling me that he could possibly be leaving the area again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not in a position to break any news on that, but I can certainly say that there's been buzz on it. I don't have much of a relationship with Lynn or his family to speak to it from my own perspective. But yeah, there's buzz that he might be gone. Now he's been playing for Team Takeover, which is DC powerhouse AU program. I don't think anybody would dispute me saying the top top to bottom AU program in the country right now. There's a lot of rumblings. I'll say that he might end up in the WCAC for this next year, the Washington Catholic League.
So it still seems to be, again, I haven't talked to him personally. I know fans, they see the name, they want to see him end up at Temple, but still seems like potentially a long shot at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't necessarily think that it's going to end up being a fit. I mean, Lynn, if you just look at, like I said, I don't know the kid that well personally, but if you just kind of look at the moves he's made, they've all, been geared towards, a high major, having a real high major recruitment. Obviously he's been in the area and had enough time and opportunity to really put out there that Temple's something he's really interested in, and that's never totally, that's never totally happened. I know from, just from dealing with the staff, like I just don't really think there's, I think the staff has acknowledged that it's not necessarily what the kid's going to be looking for. And frankly, in some ways, that's a mature decision. Not everybody wants to go the Jameer Nelson Jr. route and play, in a really large shadow that their dad cast, especially when it's literally the same name. When you're literally Lynn Greer playing at Temple, there's a lot that comes with that. So you can't blame a kid for not necessarily just, wanting to pursue other options. And, the sense I've gotten is that that's kind of the message that they've given to Temple. He's a really talented kid. I'm sure, if he called and said, yeah, all of a sudden I've had a change of heart and I'd love to come to Temple, the staff would definitely pick up the phone and be really interested in that. But right now, there's just not really that much interest going on either side right now. So it'd be, I don't really see a scenario right now where that happens, especially if he's going to be moving out of the area.
Another name starting to hear more about, I don't know how much you've seen him. Again, they could potentially, like I said, like to get it big in this class. Obi is Anachili Killen, who's from West Virginia.
Yeah.
About 6'8", 180. He's got Penn State. He's got a USF offer. VCU is potentially in the lead there. Have you seen him get a chance to?
I actually haven't seen him yet. He plays for a Wildcat Select program, which has become last few years kind of a powerhouse Adidas program based out of Pittsburgh, but a lot of Pittsburgh, Ohio, West Virginia kids. So I actually have not seen Obi play it. I haven't had a chance to see Wildcat Select yet this year. I haven't been able to make it to an Adidas event yet. But I do have a very good relationship with their program director, so I can just, he's told me he's, at the very least, a really solid A-10 kid. And the program director, actually, Tom Geroni, played at Davidson, so obviously knows the A-10 very well when he says that. And definitely is going to have a chance just as as an energetic big, guy. He's going to have looks at a higher level than that, and has had a nice spring. Like, he's definitely generated some buzz for him. I just haven't had a chance to see him play myself yet.
Now, just from talking to the 2029 class really well. You've seen a lot of these guys.
Absolutely.
This is a chance for Temple, again, depending on how things go with the numbers, they probably have about 5 scholarships to give to that class. A lot of the names there, they had Steve Mitchell come in for an unofficial visit with Zach Hicks. Maybe start with those guys. What you've seen from those guys so far?
So Stevie's a kid I've been on for a while now. He's playing with Philly Pride right now. I do have to shout out my guy from Team Final Red, who we played 15U with last summer from their kind of Team Finals Central PA off branch. And he had an outstanding 15U year last year, and they kind of became one of like my favorite pet teams to watch. Mainly because of Stevie. He would just go out like this kind of, for people who haven't seen him, kind of like a baby-faced kid. At the time, he's a little bit pudgy, a little bit undersized, and would just give out buckets to everybody. Sneaker teams, not sneaker teams. Like they beat several of the sponsored level teams throughout the summer last year. And each game, you could see like teams would come out and they wouldn't treat Stevie with that much respect because he doesn't look like much. And he would hit the first one. They'd be like, oh, maybe you got to guard this kid. He'd hit a second one, then he'd step out and hit it, and then you see him realize, wow, this kid's really good. Now since then, he's jumped to Philly Pride, and frankly, like when they were asking me about him during the high school season, I'm like, definitely kid can help you. But I did not expect him to be leading the Under Armour 16U the Under Armour Association 16U in scoring the way that he is. But finally getting to see him again, he's probably grown about 1.5 inches and cut down like 10, 15 pounds. Like I said, it was a little bit pudgy last year, and he's just an absolute bucket now. Can give it to you anyway from anywhere on the court. Still does it with like a baby face and usually a smile on his face while he's doing it. He's one of my favorite kids to watch in the whole area. I'd be lying if I said when I was watching him last year I thought he'd be at this level right now. But now, he's every bit of probably like a mid to mid-major plus kid right now with the chance to be even better than that, as he just keeps outproducing guys.
Now, is LaSalle offer? Temple has not offered?
No, Temple hasn't offered him yet. LaSalle still his only offer. LaSalle had him on campus a few days before Temple did, I think. Now, what's actually interesting about Stevie that I didn't know until recently is his mom played here at Temple.
Yeah.
I think around the same time as Aaron, or like I think they overlapped for a year or two.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a connection there, and like I think he's going to be somebody the staff pursues. And just he's going to be the guy who comes in. He's about 6'1" right now. Not like your John Stockton, Steve Nash style point guard. Like he's a scorer, but is going to get guys involved, make good decisions. He's going to play this level. He's going to play on the ball. But more kind of like that new look style point guard that's going to score first and definitely get others involved as well. But going to put up some big points. And Zach Higgs has kind of been a revelation over the last 6 to 9 months, I'd say. I actually have to a former Temple player who went out to Maine, Julian Dunkley. Who's a big time trainer. People may not know.
Rival high school.
Cherry Hill West.
Saw him play.
Yep. Yeah. People might not know that. I mean, Julian's become a really big time trainer in this area. Just has his hands on a ton of kids throughout South Jersey and Philly. And what's always funny is like when kids train with Julian, it's always like. It's always a very genuine relationship, and he's always has influence on those kids, not in any type of negative way, and in a positive way. So he called me about Zach, probably going into the high school season. Like, I got the 6'7" kid who shoots the piss out of the ball already. And sure enough, I went to see Zach actually in a workout with Julian. I saw him play a couple times at Canada Catholic, and that's what he is. And is an absolute baby for his class too. I mean, he just turned 16 this past April, which for in recruiting circles is it is ridiculously young for a kid at that level. So kind of like what I was saying about Dominguez, he's already a very legit 6'7", and he already makes shots at a really high clip. There's kind of only so low you can go. So I know he's somebody that I don't think there's any official offers yet, but all the local schools are starting to monitor. And definitely I think this July, and that Philly Pride team is ranked by some right now as the number 1 team in the country, that 16U team. So he's definitely going to get a lot of looks this summer, and I'd expect him to have a few offers, and at the very least like the mid-major range coming out of the summer.
You got more names I could ask you about, but what are the names that jump out to you that you think would be, again, we're not talking about 2021 guys, so there's a couple years here, but guys that you think Temple could end up pursuing, guys that they should be pursuing, guys that have just impressed you?
Yeah, the Stevie and Zach are kind of the 2 big names off that Philly Pride team that I think Prep Hoops has them ranked number 1 in the country at the 16U level. There's a lot of talk locally that Team Final might actually have the best 16U team in the country. Roster-wise, I see probably 9 kids on that team that I think have a chance to maybe one day play high major basketball. Throughout the 2021 and 22 class. Jalen Duran is a big name on that team. Yeah. I don't think if I had to put money on it, he's not setting foot in college, let alone at Temple. He's 2022 big from Roman. People in the area they bring up Rasheed Wallace's name when they talk about Jalen Duran. Yeah. Just to give some of the listeners an idea who haven't seen him yet. And if you haven't, you should get out to Roman. It's a treat to watch. But definitely some of the rest of the guys on that team. I know during this live period, Temple had a guy pretty much at all of their games. Probably the main guys on that team who could be real, big time Temple targets. I know they've already done a lot of work with Deshaun Shepard and Russell Diggins from Archbishop Wood. I think Deshaun maybe has an official offer and Russell doesn't yet. I think, but both are being recruited by the Temple staff right now. And are both kids that are probably going to end up right around that level. Nana Njoku's a kid from that team, 2021 big from Sanford School. Just super polished on the low block. He was a kid when he kind of came up, I was a little concerned he might not pan out the way some other bigs kind of in this in this area have gone, where really big time kid when they're freshmen and maybe don't cut down on the weight, don't grow anymore, don't expand their game, and even within a year and a half, 2 years, he's already kind of thrown that out the window. He's got his body right, explosive now. He's stepping out and shooting threes a little bit. So he'd be a home run get for Temple. I think he's definitely going to be a kid that has some high major. Definitely a more than a couple high major suitors, I would think. And then probably one other kid from that team is who I know the staff's done a little bit with is Marcus Randolph, who's a kid from Willingboro. Actually, might be going to play with Russell and Deshaun Shepard at Archbishop Wood. That's still a little bit up in the air. Once again, I'm not in a position to break any news just yet. But Marcus is
could be.
Yeah, could be. Marcus is like a 6'4" 2 guard. Really shoots the ball. If you watch him for Team 5 with that much talent, it's really just the shooting you see. If you go see him with Willingboro, he can, has a little bit more to him with the ball. High IQ player, make some nice passes, kind of as a secondary playmaker. So definitely, just between, and that's just between 2 programs. But I think, that 2021 class, there's a ton of guys in this area that are going to be right around Temple's level, if not a little bit higher, but they're going to maybe have a chance to, kind of play the local angle, play the Aaron McKee angle, and still be able to get those guys. Or just guys who are just really solid AAC players that are right in the backyard, and I think it's going to be important that, and I know the staff, thinks it's going to be important that they at least, get one or two of those guys.
What about Gabe Dorsey and Jalen Worley?
Oh yeah, so actually just came back from Southern Jam Fest this weekend, which they play out of the area with Team Durant, who's based out of DC, Maryland area, and they actually just won the Southern Jam Fest this weekend. They've lost that team's lost in 3 championship games throughout the spring, so it was good to they played well everywhere they went. So it was good to see them finally get a championship. Gay, and I'm sounding like a broken record at this point with guys who are a certain size and can already make shots at a high level. That's Gabe Dorsey to a T. I mean, he's probably almost 6'5", lefty. Doesn't have is one of my favorite guys because he doesn't have the most orthodox stroke. He almost gets a weird side spin on the ball when he shoots it. But I've seen him hit 5-6 threes in a game enough times that I'm fully comfortable trusting it, and that's what he does. He's a total sniper, 5-6 feet behind the line, off the bounce, off of screens. Isn't afraid to take 2 or 3 in a row even if he's missing them. But he knows where his bread is buttered and he does it. And he's not a guy that's going to get picked on the other end too. He's 6'4", 6'5", rangy, not a solid athlete. So kind of another guy that just you can't totally miss on at this level. It's going to be actually interesting to see, what high major schools are interested in taking a look at him, because depending on the fit, I think he could definitely, just bring a dynamic at that level with the shooting. And Jalen Worley is actually at Temple. He may have been Temple's first official offer in 2021. I think just this past week he was on campus and they offered him. He's been a late bloomer relative to some of these other guys. As kind of just a really skilled guard who wasn't the most athletic. But is younger for his grade and has just kind of steadily kept growing. He's probably about almost 6'4" now, and can very legitimately play the point guard spot. And as he's kind of started to grow into his body, you're starting to see a little bit more athleticism from him. If he keeps doing that, I think he's going to have a chance to be a high major guard in his own right. But right now I can see Temple being that level being a great fit for him as kind of a kid who can come in, play on ball, play off ball. Just super skilled and really heady, mature basketball player. I think in some ways those are kind of the guys Aaron's looking for. It's natural. You got to look for the guys that played like you if you're a former player. Bigger guards, real under control, real high IQ, and tough. And right now I definitely see Jalen. The tough. He might not strike you as the toughest kid because he's a little baby face and not the strongest yet, but he's a tough kid for sure. We'll defend. He's not going to back down for anybody. You're not taking the ball off of him. So he's, they offered him last week, and I could see him being a Temple priority for that 2021 class down the line.
Kind of one last question I want to fire at you before we get to it. We have some mailbag questions for you. And Graham kind of talked about this earlier. Aaron comes in, and everybody's saying, you got to get Philly kids, you got to get Philly kids, you got to get Philly kids. And it seems to me is it like a chicken and egg thing where he's got to come in and win right away and maybe win a couple tournament games before. Sounds harsh. We talked about before. It's everybody locally looks at Villanova as the benchmark, and everybody else is. I'd say in some ways Temple's nice, LaSalle's nice, but do they have to? Is it a priority for them in 2021 where they feel we got to get a couple local kids to make a statement, or is it just more just get players wherever the hell you can?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So when I say they've talked about how it's important, to get a couple of guys in that 21 class, I think the prerequisite for that is that the talent has to be there.
Right.
I don't think no matter what, it's good to take a kid from your backyard just to say you did it if you don't actually think he can play for you.
Sure.
We've had enough of those conversations off air where sometimes that that ends up backfiring where you have this kid from Roman or this kid from Imhotep or this kid from Team Final, why isn't he playing? Why isn't he playing? Why isn't he playing? And the people from outside, there's a million reasons why that could be, but they don't know that. It's just noise and pressure that you start getting as a staff. Where if you're the kid doesn't have a million of those people right in in his backyard, you don't have to deal with that necessarily. But yeah, I mean I've always said these guys' job is to win. Yeah. Now, obviously, a great way to do that is to be able to take advantage and get kids from your backyard. We live in, in a talent-rich area, but it's not, if they win, A, I think the Philly kids will start coming, if they want to, and B, it's, I just don't think it matters where the kids are coming from if they're winning. That's what these guys' job is to do.
Yeah. So we had some mailbag questions coming in from our message board. So again, you'll hear these from screen names here. First one comes from Mission Man. In Ari's eyes, what are the top 5 AAU basketball programs in the area for both boys and girls?
All right, so honestly, John sent these to me, a half hour or so before I was coming in, and I told him when I walked in that I'm gonna totally have to couch this one. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I can't speak at all to the girls' side. I happen to know Eric Worley from a different life who runs Philly Triple Threat. I know they're a big time girls program. I think Under Armour just started a girls circuit, and they're now playing on that. And I guess the Philly Bells are the big time Nike program in this area. Mm-hmm. But I can speak to that, but it's based off reputation. I don't know anything really about that side of things. On the boys' side, I mean, you've got the 4 main sneaker programs, which in any given year are going to have the market cornered on a lot of just the top high level talent. The guys who are going to be recruited by the Temples of the South, Villanovas of the world, and if not higher. So those would be team finals, the Nike representative of the area, Philly Pride, and We Are One. We Are One's technically based out of Delaware, but always has a bunch of kids from the Philly, Jersey area. They're both on the Under Armour circuit, and Kalo Elite, which is on the Adidas circuit. And actually, and I'm not even totally couching it by not putting them in order. I've actually had a lot of conversations the last little bit of how each of them, it's hard in Philly specifically to name which is the top one, because they all kind of do it different. They all kind of do it a little differently. Like Team Final probably puts out the most pros, and first round picks and all that. Philly Pride probably has kind of made their brand of taking a lot of Philly, real Philly public league kids, and kind of like the Aaron McKee types. And putting them into college, and they do a great job of doing that. We Are One is just, no pun intended, they've just won. They've had 3 out of 4 Under Armour titles. And that's what they pride themselves on. And Kalo is just a real grassroots program. I mean, they have their funding from Kyle, so they're able to kind of take their kids and keep them, grow them, develop them. And I always say that once you're part of the Kalo family, it's that's a very real thing that they take seriously. And they've won in their own right and sent guys to high major level and to the pros. So you got those 4. I'm remiss to name just one independent program as the 5th one. But you got the Jersey Shore Warriors have been around forever. East Coast Power is now starting to really come up as a big time independent program. Then you got the Positive Image, PYO. The Philly Blue Magic, all these local teams, and honestly, the best way I can answer that, I don't know who, if the person who asked maybe has a kid who wants to play or what, but probably the best way I can answer it is it's different for every kid. It's important to go somewhere where you're going to play. It's great to say you played for Team Final and to get a pair of Nike shoes. At the end of the day, the goal of AAU is to get seen by colleges, and if you're not good enough to really play at that level, then it's not doing you much good to play for them. So I was there's a fit out there for anybody, no matter what level player you are. Mm-hmm. But it's really, I would say it's really important don't necessarily get sucked up into feeling like I have to play for one of these circuit or shoe teams. They all provide a great opportunity for the kids that do that, but it has to be the right fit. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the most out of that opportunity, and somebody else, even if they're not traveling the country, is going to be able to put you specifically in a better position to showcase yourself. And that's what AAU is all about, is really to show the experience of it, and getting to go to tournaments with your friends, and be in the hotel rooms, and be on the road together, and and then getting a chance to showcase your talent. So
next question comes from Hootie Hoot, our most consistent, say this every week, our most consistent questioner. What is your take on big-time schools getting caught paying recruits and succeeding in the postseason, only to be congratulated and rewarded with ESPN exposure and praise for the head coach and his staff? Do you ever see this hypocrisy ending?
God, tell me how you really feel.
It's not a question.
I take a very laissez-faire approach to all this.
The exposure only comes from ESPN.
Yeah, of course.
Nobody else.
Sure. And I'm sure there's not a specific AAC program you might be talking about there. But yeah, I'm very laissez-faire. I think there should be a way for these kids to get paid. I think it's ridiculous that it has to be under the table for the kids that are getting paid. And frankly, I don't really care though about the hypocrisy. I can't get that riled up about it. frankly, the schools that are winning are competing against other schools doing, the schools that you think are winning and cheating, they're competing against other schools that are also cheating. So, they're still doing something different and better than everybody else to be able to win. The biggest thing where it comes into play for me is just like I know there's certain recruitments that you kind of know are going to be the bag deals or certain schools that's going to be a fit for. And just from my perspective, I don't recommend the kids that I know are going to be bag deals to the schools that I know that's not going to be a fit for, and vice versa. That's really the only opinion that I have on, and the only way it affects me. Otherwise, I really I think it's ridiculous that it has to be all under the table the way that it is. So I don't mind these kids I don't blame the kids for going out and getting it, and I don't blame the coaches for doing what they feel they have to do to compete.
The next question, you kind of touched on this already. Screen name is P. Furmai. What has been the response on the recruiting circuit, not only to Aaron, but the staff he's put together? So we kind of asked you about the staff, but you kind of touched on this earlier. You feel like there has been a little bit of a buzz out there.
Yeah. I mean, it even just right now, it puts Temple in the conversation with the Michigans, the Vanderbilts, Georgetown, schools that have hired, recently former pros, and also I will say specifically black head coaches. And there's a big groundswell of, each year there's new stats that come out of the, how many Power 5 jobs there are and how many are held by black head coaches, or how many black head coaches get fired and get replaced by non-minority head coaches, and I definitely think there's a big groundswell amongst grassroots people and AAU people, high school people to support that. So just it puts Temple in that conversation with just these high major schools, just because of Aaron's pedigree. And yeah, definitely. I mean, if the kids don't know Aaron, their AAU coach does, or their dad does. And that's something that's really important to these kids right now is what's going to put me in the NBA. That Coach Cal model, and it's now kind of becoming the Penny Hardaway Memphis model of what's going to put kids in the league, and being able to say I've been there and I've done that, and especially for Aaron, I've been there and I've done that from Temple. I think has been really important, and people recognizing that.
I'll read Herd Owl's question, but we already touched on it. Herd Owl 51 says, what is your opinion of the recent class Coach McKee has put together, including the transfers? We talked about that. Next question from Fig1. Of the players Temple is currently recruiting, who in your opinion has been under-recruited thus far?
I mean, I think you can point to Jallo White as that type of a kid, and I actually would have to give credit to the Temple staff if they were one of his first offers, and have probably done as much work with him as anybody else, and also still remain as his highest level offer. He doesn't have a high major Power 5 offer right now, so the AAC other than that is about as high as you're going to get. And we were discussing, I think if he played a couple, a matter of even his AAU coach said if he even finished out the tournament that he got hurt during, he probably would have left there with a high major offer. So I guess you could consider Jalil under recruited right now. Otherwise, I mean, the main guys we talked about, Taj, Dominguez Stevens, I think they're I can't say either of them are particularly under recruited. They're both solid high major high major kids, or really impact mid major kids, and they're being recruited at that level by those schools. So there's no one that jumps out at me as this kid's going to be some steal. They're recruiting guys that that are being recruited by their schools at a similar level. It's just going to be a matter of being able to beat those guys out.
We got a few questions here from North Broad. How have you seen the new NCAA recruiting calendar affect events and recruiting?
Completely negatively. Yeah, I mean, from the time that this stuff all got kind of put into place with them changing the calendar, I mean, I can give a brief summary of it for people that don't know. They'd used to be 2 April weekends where coaches could go out and watch kids during AAU, and then 3 5-day periods during July where they could go out and watch kids during AAU. And then during the high school season, they're pretty much able to come in and out as they please and go to games around whatever their own schedules are. They've now cut that back to 1 weekend in April, so a Friday evening through Sunday afternoon, and a 4-day period in July of AAU. And they've added, to replace that, they've added a few days of what we talked about. This is going to be this June high school period, 2 weekends of that, and then these NCAA camps that they're doing the back end of July. That's replacing essentially what used to be 10 days of AAU, and is just in no way a valid replacement for that from the perspective of a coach trying to evaluate as many kids as possible and see kids that are going to be a fit for their as many kids that might be a fit for their program, and for kids trying to have the most opportunity they can at exposure. So now, I mean, these NCAA camps now, people are saying that about only like 4,500 kids registered online, which is apparently a prerequisite to play in these camps. But even being on the like that was such an undersold part of it. Like people didn't even know that this was a thing. So it's just been really haphazard. It's taken a lot of opportunities away from kids. It's put the kids who are getting now more opportunities are the top 100 kids who don't need it. Right. Like they made this NBPA top 100 camp coming up in a few weeks. They made that a live tournament now, or a live period for D1 coaches. But like those kids don't need extra exposure. They're at a top 100 camp for a reason. They're already recognized as those level kids. Yeah. So it's really just taking opportunities away from more kids to get seen, and also the way that they're being seen now during these camps. Any scout or coach will tell you that a camp is where you go to get a bad evaluation. And of course now that's they're putting more into now these camps and more opportunities at these camps and less to see kids play. Say what you want about AAU, but it's at least kids playing in a team setting with kids they know, kids they've seen before. And they're playing for something. They want to, even if it's to win an AU tournament, it's a real game and you want to win. Whereas a camp is just really a tough place to evaluate. You see kids do some stuff that they probably could never do in a real game, and then kids that just, play really well in a real 5-on-5 game and their skills don't translate to a camp. So yeah, it's been a mess, and basically, I can speak for just about everybody, hoping that they I don't expect it to happen, but the NCAA will just kind of throw their hands up and be like, we botched this one, and go back to the way it used to be. I mean, not that there weren't changes that needed to be made, but none of the changes that were made kind of addressed the problem, in my opinion.
A couple more here from North Broad. This will be a fun one for you to answer. Gun to your head, which local 2019 kid will have the most successful NCAA career? Wong, Gaffney, Dixon, Scott, Bishop, Lundy, Hart, or even Bones Highland?
All right. How is the question phrased exactly? Who's going to have
which local kid will have the most successful college career?
Okay. And I can say, I'm comfortable saying now that, these kids are graduating. I can say I did have Isaiah Wong ranked as my number one prospect in the 2019 class locally.
In Miami.
Yep. And that was, that was what I said about the 2020 class not being the best. This 2019 class was an absolute pleasure to evaluate. So that was, being number one in that class really means something. But as far as the best college career, now you kind of have to assess how much. I'm not sure Isaiah Wong's going to be in Miami for much more than a couple of years. So I kind of think probably out of those guys, the best kind of cross section of who's going to be the best overall basketball player and who's going to have the best college career is probably Eric Dixon. Mm-hmm. Just because he's probably going to be a 4-year guy at Villanova. Mm-hmm. I do think Eric, I'm not betting against Eric. I think he's going to have a chance to put himself onto the NBA radar, even though he's not the most traditional, NBA model as a 6'7", scoring 4-man. But it's one where I trust the kid enough that he's going to put him. I trust the kid and I trust the program he's going to enough that they're going to put him in a position at least be on that radar. But I mean, if you put Eric in the Big East this past year, there weren't going to be many guys stopping him one-on-one on the block. And he's able to step out now and shoot too. He's not just a one-dimensional post-up guy. So as such as the Villanova kid, I think he's going to have a great career there. They're going to get him in great shape. Which he's done a lot of work on his own in high school, but you can't compare it to resources you get at a program like Villanova and the track record they have. So I'd say probably Eric Dixon. I love Dante Scott. I think he could actually be a kid that I could see leaving Maryland a little bit early for the pros. But if he's there for 4 years, I think he's going to be right in that conversation. And Seth Lundy is a name that people for the last year and a half almost seem like he kind of keeps getting forgotten. But I think he's going to have a really, really good career at Penn State. And another one that after a good 4-year career is going to have a chance to be on the pro radar. So I'd say probably Wong I kind of have to take out because I think Wong's a top 50 kid in the country. I think he's going to be a pro sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. But those other three I would say are probably the big ones. And if you have to put a gun to my head, I'd take Eric just because he's so college ready already.
Mm-hmm. Final one from North Broad. We got a couple of Memphis questions here. Thoughts on what Memphis has done this recruiting cycle, and can it be sustainable?
I think what they've really shown specifically in the last couple weeks and months has been the part of what's going to be sustainable. When they got James Wiseman and the other 4 or 5-star kid they had for a while was DJ Jeffries. Both of those are Memphis kids. Both of them played for Penny either in AAU in high school or both. In the case of James Wiseman, he coached him at Memphis East. And DJ Jeffries played for, it's now Bluff City Legends, but at the time it was Team Penny, the AAU program on the Nike circuit. So at the end of the day, when Penny was hired, it was basically with the understanding that he was coming with James Wiseman and DJ Jeffries. What he's done this spring and going out and getting Rajon Tucker, who was probably the top grad transfer on the market, beat out a ton of blue blood programs for him, probably had 30, 40 high major schools calling his phone once he said he was going to transfer from Little Rock. Getting Precious Achua, who I think is a future pro, as kind of a hybrid, new age stretch four man, and a McDonald's All-American, and not somebody with any real connection to Penny or Memphis prior to that. Same as Rajon Tucker. And then they also just went out and got Boogie Ellis, who once he decommitted from Duke, obviously a blue blood program in their own right, had all the rest of those schools, trying to get his commitment. He's coming to Memphis. And then even a kid like Lester Quinones, who they also just signed in the spring, not quite that level, a 5-star level talent, but depending on who you ask, like a potential top 50, top 75 kid in the country who just has had a ton of high major suitors for 2 years. That and another one with no previous connections to Penny or to Memphis, that they went out and signed. And you're already seeing now with these, with the 2020 class, even some younger kids like. Memphis is out there. Mike, it's not just Penny; it's also Mike Miller. These kids. I don't know him that well. I don't know what necessarily enough to know what the intrigue is, but these kids love Mike Miller. Kids that are even some of the top 2022 prospects in the country right now are like that's my bro. They've done a really good job also, kind of similar to what we said about Aaron, selling that NBA pedigree, and that's not something that's going away. That's something that's getting even more and more appealing to kids. I definitely think the James Wiseman, the DJ Jeffries is like, all right, Memphis is going to be really good for a year or two, with those guys. But I think they've shown now that it's definitely something they're going to be able to sustain.
So next question, another Memphis question comes from screen name DBlaze75. To piggyback on North Broad's question, will Memphis's recruiting help Temple recruiting in the rest of the schools in the American?
I definitely think it can't hurt. Just adding to the track record of guys being able to, we keep coming back to the appeal of going pro, and when it really comes down to recruiting at the level Temple's trying to win at, that's so much of what it comes down to is, where can I go win, where can I go showcase myself for the pros, or if I'm not ready for that yet, who's going to get me better, so I can go be a good pro, or if I feel like I'm definitely going to be a pro, who's going to make me the most ready in what might be only 1 year, to do that. And I think just Memphis being able to add more allure to the conference overall is you can come and get seen here, or just even we're going to play Memphis twice a year, and there's going to be probably 30, 40 pro scouts at all their games this year, and probably now for the next couple years. I think it definitely can't hurt just to kind of have that profile out there and have the AAC for the first time in a few years kind of have a real national level recognized program. They're bringing the number one recruiting class in the country, and they're competing. Consistently for with the top 5 or 6 programs in the country for those kids. So just having that national kind of recognition can hurt the rest of the teams in the league.
His second question: what is the ceiling for Temple in the 2020 and 21 classes? The top players that they can realistically sign in each class. It's a crystal ball question.
Yeah, frankly, Temple makes this a little bit easier than some other programs because I think they don't like to kind of spray and pray when it comes to recruiting, as far as offer 30, 40 kids and hope the couple of them that express interest back. They kind of zero in on some kids that they really like earlier. I guess probably the best way to take it for 2020 at this point, because they've started to look in on guys. I'd say probably their ideal class would be a Jalil White, a Dominguez Stevens, and either a Taj Thweed or maybe another big they find. Depending on kind of what look they want from that third guy. But like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if Jalil's committed sooner rather than later, and I think especially with that being the case, they're going to really want a shot maker next to him, and Dominguez fills that role. And then that puts him in a really good spot to kind of be able to take the best player available. And right now, as far as guys, I think Taj is a legit, he can go in and help a Power 5 program eventually. So there's no reason he can't come into the AC and be an immediate impact guy. So I kind of see that right now, based on the guys they're recruiting, probably being the ideal final class with the 3-man class right now. In 2021, I can really only speak to the area kids right now. I don't know too much about who they're recruiting outside of the area. I'd say the best kid that could realistically sign is a kid that I have ranked number 1 in the class right now locally, and that's Nana Njoku, who we talked about recently. Just because Nana's going to have some high major suitors, but he's not necessarily the modern type of big man that everyone is looking for. He's 6'9" right now, a real back to the basket guy. He can step out and shoot it, And like I said, he's gotten a lot more explosive, but he's just not as sexy maybe as some other names that that a lot of these Power 5 programs are really going to look at. And also knowing Nana a little bit, I think he's a relationship kid. So I think I know Temple's trying to kind of have him up on campus soon. If that offer were to go out, there's no one in there right now that is like, oh no, Temple can't compete against them. And as long as they're getting in there, kind of sooner rather than later, which I'm making an effort to do right now. He's a kid it's going to be a battle, but I could see him coming here eventually. So I'd have to say he's the top kid realistically. I could see.
Good stuff, Ari. Thank you. I appreciate it. We have some football business to finish off here, and then one mailbag question that is not for Ari, and then we'll close things out here. Again, we'll have, in terms of football recruiting news, Rod Carey's football camp start up next month. The difference with Rod is that the previous coaches have started the camps in late May. There's usually been one around this weekend, right?
Yeah, and they spaced them out. And Rod looks like he's just grinding them all out in the span of 8 days.
Yeah, let's do this in June so I can get on vacation. So his camps start June 14th, June 15th. There's also a PA All-Stars camp on the 15th, and then June 19th, 21st, and 22nd. As Kyle said, will grind them out in June. We have one football mailbag question. This one comes from D-Blaze75 as well. And here we are answering questions about the stadium, but it's on people's minds. Any signs of life with the on-campus football stadium? If you had to put odds on an official agreement for an on-campus stadium happening within the next 5 years, what would your odds be? Kyle, you're a degenerate gambler. What can you tell us? I'm kidding. He's
Wait,
not.
like shovel in the ground, or like we're kicking off here at Kyle Gauss Stadium?
I'm not D-Blaze75. I don't know.
I'll say in the next 5 years, is it like done? Like, no, like, is it like a done deal? Like, it's going to happen. We've started construction. Look at us. Where I'm Dick Engler and I have a funny little yellow hat on as I cut a ribbon. 50%? 45%? Coin flip.
That's how I'd evaluate it. I just feel like I've heard nothing further, and it seems like it can go really badly or really well for Temple. So I would also say it's a coin flip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I'd have anything to add to that. I think it's been kind of, I mean, there's at some point they're gonna have to figure it out whether they want to keep, extending their lease with the Eagles or, if it's done the right way. As we said before, it could be a great thing for the program. But I think I'd put it at your odds right there. I cannot say that there's been any recent buzz about it either way. But again, it's one of those topics that's going to be continuing to be revisited as they get closer on their end of their lease. So that will do for this week. We will have. Oh, you want some odds on this?
No. Actually, there's just there's something else I want to add. Just for back basketball, if you don't mind.
Ari wants in on the football stage.
No, I want no parts. No parts.
I was going to kick it back over to you and say, Ari, any closing thoughts on life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness?
I was gonna say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not quite, but basketball, yes. John, you might not be surprised to hear that from me. I would just for anybody who's listened, to me kind of talk about these kids for this long, they're probably interested in the fact that there's a few 2022 prospects, right? Sure. I'm only mentioning at this point because that class, there's a few kids in that class that have a chance to be really special from this area, I think, and a few that are definitely probably going to end up being Temple priorities and just. You play the odds. I'd like to think one of them ends up here eventually if they make them a priority. And those few kids, you mentioned Jalen Duran briefly, but I also do just want to say Justice Williams is another Roman kid who plays on that team final 16U team, and those two and Jameel Brown from the Haverford School are both going down to the USA Basketball U16 tryout this weekend. Jameel Brown, Millsy's a kid that I could actually like. I could see very realistically being like Temple's biggest 2022 target when it comes down to it. Just like I said, I don't think Jalen Duran's even going to college. Although
what I'm taking from this is that you're saying Jalen Duran is coming to Temple, and this will revolutionize the program.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're thinking like the rules will be different by.
Yeah, I mean, basically everybody's saying that that 2022 draft is going to be the first one high school kids can go to, and I mean, Jalen is as close to a can't miss big man prospect as there is. Only reason he's not ranked number 1 in the country right now is because Amani Bates, people are saying might be the best prospect since LeBron. I haven't seen him really to say that myself, but in any other class, normal class, Jalen's consensus number 1 kid in the country. Justice is also, probably going to end up being, a potential, blue blood type kid. Like I know Duke has already expressed some interest in him. Haven't seen him play with Jalen enough. Whereas Millsy's a kid I see is going to remain. Jameel Brown, he goes by Millsy. He's going to be like a top 50 to 75 kid, I think, when it's all for the whole time. But kind of like I was talking about Nana, just not necessarily the sexiest. Like he's not coming out and dunking on guys. He's not like just a really really good basketball player. And I can see that certainly once Temple's won it, hopefully for them over these next couple of years, that 2022 class, they can really come to a top 50, 75 kid and be like, yeah, this is why you should really consider coming to Temple, even though you're going to have some higher level stuff. And then the one other kid just in that group is Chance Westry from Mount Harrisburg. I really realistically see all 4 of those kids as potential top 50 kids in their class down the line. And, it's rare to be able to say that about, one area this early in the process. So I just definitely wanted to give those guys their due. And I feel like anybody who's listened this long to me talk about Philly high school basketball is probably interested in that as well. Probably some of the only ones other than me that's interested in that too. So just wanted to give kind of those 4 guys a shout out: Jalen Duran, Justice Williams, Jameel Brown, and Chance Westry. Especially the latter 3 of the guards. I feel like Temple fans are probably going to be hearing a lot about over the next few years and very curious about over the next few years.
All right, appreciate it, man. Again, if you are not doing so already, follow Ari on Twitter at Rosenfeld DVHR. Again, he's the co-founder and scouting director of the Delaware Valley Hoop Support. Basically just gave you everything you need to know about the best players in the area and beyond over the next few years and players that Temple is going to be involved with. So thanks, buddy, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
We will talk to you guys next week with more hoops, maybe if any football recruiting news breaks. Kyle, Graham, any closing thoughts?
Are we going on summer break or not?
when I'm in Italy in a couple of weeks.
I thought this was our last. I thought we got Ari on. We were finishing on a strong note. We were going to take like 2.5 minutes off.
trying to get one more basketball.
John's working his guys hard,
keeps doing it.
I should have just talk about football recruiting. I just also want to get out there how I'm so happy I cover basketball recruiting and not football recruiting. I don't know how you guys do it.
You just don't even bother following kids until it's that recruiting class.
Yep.
Because when I see like a 2022 wide receiver, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
My favorite is when it's like, I'm committed here, but I'm taking, but I'm still open and I'm taking a bit. I'm like, well, do you know what committed means? Like the dictionary definition of it? Like, thank God, at least that stuff happens behind the scenes. You don't have to report on it in basketball. Football, it's the Wild West. Like I could never do it.
At least they added the early signing period in December, which has made things.
That doesn't even mean that the coach leaves and then you can get out of it.
Yeah. So it's like one thing after another.
It really just tricks you. It lets you feel secure. You guys covering it lets you feel secure.
Well, this past coaching coverage cycle was unlike anything I'd ever seen. I think we joked about this. It was in Cape May for the day with Chelsea and my mother-in-law, and the Manny Diaz, come on, who was Miami's old coach?
Mark Richt,
quote unquote, retires. And we're talking on the way back. I'm like, is this happening? Nah, it's not happening. And then like at different points on the AC Expressway, I was like, it's done. We're going to be covering another coaching search. I can't effing believe this. We're covering a new coaching search.
We just need a late-breaking mailbag question. Do we have time for?
A late-breaking mailbag question?
Yeah, check your Twitter.
Oh, and I got another one that we were supposed to do. And I'll get
Jamal Doman specifically wants to hear from you guys, not me. What's the NBA potential for Shiz Austin? This question is for you guys, not Ari. I appreciate it. This question is for you guys, not Ari.
What is the NBA potential for Shiz Austin?
From my completely non-scouted mind, maybe the Deontay Christmas route where you bounce around in Turkey for a while. You kind of Deontay was in a camp coming out of Temple with the Sixers, bounced back. Maybe you sneak in there later on in your career.
Yeah, I Graham.
Yeah, I would say in the beginning of the season, I didn't think there was much hope at all. But now I'm starting to think, he may start in Europe and maybe has a chance to come over. But
there's worse living than making 7 figures tax-free in an apartment.
Yeah, I know Jamal didn't want to hear from me, but the way I'll put it is Shiz is going to be making a good amount of money, barring injury or anything unforeseen, knocking on wood. He's going to be making good money playing basketball for the next 12, 15 years, wherever that is. And if he shows with some better looks and not some of those low percentage looks he had to take, talk about not really having a guy to create for him, that he's better than a 35-36% 3-point shooter that he was here, and he shows signs of potentially being that. Yeah, he could be on the NBA radar after another couple years and some strong years in Europe.
Yeah, as we all know, it was like teams defending him. It was like, okay, dribble handoff, we're going to run a second guy at you and just make life tough for you, and then he'd have to. Because there wasn't like this ball-dominant guy who was super quick and get to the rim, it was like, okay, I'm going to try to shimmy past you. I can't. And they would be able to hit these fadeaway shots, but after a while, your legs are just going to go no matter how much
and just taking tougher looks is automatically going to tank your percentage a little bit.
Yeah. I know I saw him briefly last week when we went over to talk to Jason Ivey, and he's hitting the weight room hard. It's easy to do that more in the offseason. He looks a little bigger than he did during the season. He knows he has to get his body in bigger and better shape, but Yeah.
To blatantly steal a thing from Part of My Take, breaking news here. Jeremiah Nelson, community college running back from Nassau, has committed to Temple.
Oh, there we go.
This fall.
And he was the guy that was in the mix as recently over.
He visited last week. Guy Nassau finished with 3 straight games of 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Thick running back. Legit, like 6 foot, 235.
Describe that
Two
so
three down
passionately.
C's in that.
3 down running back, 25 catches last year, about 800 yards.
That's
So.
going to be. It's going to last.
I assume
lasting
scholarship.
memory
I assume
from
a
this.
scholarship option. I did have a legitimate JUCO career, but just announced.
Yeah, so there we go. Temple's addressing a position of need at running back there.
If Kamal doesn't want my thoughts on shit Austin, I'm sure he doesn't care what I
Yeah.
have to say about a JUCO running back.
The thing I was going to mention, Matt Bender texted us, said, give us your scouting report on 5th grade you in basketball.
On 5th grade me. All right, so for
Matt
those of you who may
Bender
not know,
and
me
couple
and Matt
Cherry Hill
Bender,
kids just
me
trying
and
to
Matt
make it
Bender are
big.
former high school teammates. Or not high school teammates. Former, I didn't play in high school. Matt didn't play in high school. Former elementary school travel ball teammates. 5th grade me. I was always like the kid you had to tone down. Like I was always just balls to the wall. And I'm not, because I'm not the most athletic. If you see me, you don't think I've ever played a game of basketball. So I was always played really hard. I was always the one that the coaches kind of had to tone down. Because I played football at the time too. So I a little bit of a football player to me. And I'll say the biggest memory out of a coach telling something to me was my coach Marcus Bullock at the time. He still trains in the area. We played at New Hampshire, so had an idea of what he was talking about. Looked at me and he's like, "Can I curse or?"
Oh, fuck shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looked at me and said, "I don't know how the fuck you do it, but you got this way of just getting by people." And so that was So I got I was never, not that I was ever a great player, but if I was doing anything, I was usually trying to get to the rim and kind of bowling ball my way there, kind of like the guard version of like a Boris Diaw.
Boris Diaw was a very good player before your time.
just figuring out a way to get to the rack and do it. Yeah, I mean I was never any type of big time player.
Boris Diaw was like a first round pick in fantasy basketball every year because he just
I'm gonna have to throw that back next time on the next episode of the Scoop. I know Matt couldn't be with us today, but now I'm gonna have to hear Matt's evaluation of his own 5th grade self as well. I remember Matt being a big time corner 3-point shooter, not necessarily a maker, but definitely had a big time 3-point. Yeah, definitely was getting the threes up. You see, I guess he saw the way basketball was going before any of us.
You guys could have seen the way Kyle condescendingly looked at Graham as if to say, "All right, listen, son."
Look.
The Boris
something-
Diaw was great.
Someone's gonna say something about President Clinton. He's like President Clinton was a president
See,
before you were born.
you saw end of his career Boris Diaw. Boris Diaw with the Suns in the beginning was awesome.
Yeah.
It was him. They had Sean Marion too. They used to do whatever the hell they wanted back then.
Joe Johnson
That's-
for his
yeah,
$127 million.
There you go.
Scouting reports didn't exist when I was in junior high and high school. People were still sending snail mail when I was in junior high and high school in the 90s. And I can't imagine that my scouting report would be anything worth.
My mother sent me a birthday card. Got lost in the mail.
Legitimately?
Is it recovered?
No, it hasn't shown up yet. And then a little gift card in it. I haven't got anything. What am I supposed to do? Write the Postmaster General?
He's already spent your gift card.
That's gonna wrap it up for this season of the Scoop.
we could be back. We could be back for one more. But we're trying to get Aaron McKee in, and then I'll be off for at least a couple of weeks. I'll be heading to Italy, and probably maybe just try to get some occasional content to you guys this summer, scooping as often as we can. Kyle will maybe come back with even in a more profane mood than he was.
That was good.
Yeah. Kyle had a Jim Boeheim rant earlier in the
Really?
season.
I still have that clipped and ready to put online. It is so good.
But all right, huge thank you to you for being here today, spending as much time with us as you did, and dissecting all these players that people will be interested in. Thank you guys for all the mailbag questions and listening, and we will talk to you soon.